that stuff?
As children come into the class, all the boys would be handed a sucker. The girls would not get any candy for the morning or morning snack, whichever you choose, whenever you do your lesson. So for video's sake, you're going to be a little girl who did not get any candy.
Okay.
Whitney's recording, just to let you know. And I would let 5 or 10 minutes go by, let everybody get sorted, settled, and throughout the day, whether the lesson's going to be taught right then or later in the day, it would be at the point where the children are really wondering why some of them didn't get candy, some of them did get candy. At that point, I would call them over to the carpet. We would sit, and I would ask them how it made them feel that some of them didn't get candy. Their responses should be something like, it's not fair, anything like that. And then I would proceed to read My Brother Martin. My Brother Martin. We were born in the same room, my brother Martin and I. I was an early baby, born sooner than expected. Mother dear and Daddy placed me in the chippewa drawer that stood in the corner of the upstairs bedroom. I got a crib a few days afterward. A year and a half later, Martin spent his first night in the hand-me-down crib in the very same room. The house we were born in belonged to Mother Dear's parents, our grandparents, the Reverend and Mrs. A.D. Williams. We lived there with them and our Aunt Ida and our grandmother's sister. And not long after my brother Martin, who were called M.L., because he and Daddy had the same name, our baby brother was born. His name was Alfred Daniel. But we called him A.D. after our grandfather. They called me Christine. And like 3 peas in a pod, we grew together. Our days and rooms were filled with adventure stories and tinker toys, with dolls and Monopoly and Chinese checkers. And although Daddy, who was an important minister, and Mother Dear, who was known far and wide as a musician, often had to work that took them away from home, our grandmother was always there to take care of us. I remember days sitting at her feet as she and her Aunt Ida filled us with grand memories of their childhood and read to us about the wonderful places in the world. And of course, my brother and I had each other. We 3 stuck together like little pages in a brand new book. And being a normal young children, we were almost always up to something. Our best prank involved a fur piece that belonged to our grandmother. It looked almost alive with its tiny feet and little head and gleaming glass eyes. So every once in a while, in the morning light of evening, we'd tie that fur piece to a stick, and hiding behind the hedge in front of our house, we would dangle it from in front of an unexpected passerby. Boy, you could hear the screams of fright all across the neighborhood. Then there was the time Mother Dear decided that her children should also learn to play the piano. I didn't mind too much, but ML and AD preferred being outside to being stuck inside with our piano teacher, Mr. Mann, who would rap your knuckles with a ruler just for playing the wrong notes. Well, one morning, ML and AD decided to loosen their legs on the piano bench so we wouldn't have to practice. We didn't tell Mr. Mann, and when he sat down, crash, down he went. But mostly we were good, obedient children, and ML did learn to play a few songs on the piano. He even went off to sing with our mother a time or two. Given his love for singing and music, I'm sure he would have become as good as musicians as our mother had his life not called him down a different path. But that's just what his life did. My brothers and I grew up a long time ago. but in a time where certain places in our country had unfair laws that said it was right to keep black people separate because our skin was darker, and our ancestors had been captured in far-off Africa and brought to America as slaves. Atlanta, Georgia, the city in which we were growing up, had those laws. Because of those laws, my family rarely went to picture shows or visited Grand Park with its famous cyclorama. In fact, to this very day, I don't recall ever seeing my father on a streetcar. Because of those laws and the indignity that went with them, Daddy preferred keeping ML, AD, and me close to home, where we would be protected. We lived in a neighborhood in Atlanta that's now called Sweet Auburn. It's named for Auburn Avenue, the street that ran in front of our house. On our side of the street stood two-story frame houses similar to the one we lived in. Across it crouched a line of one-story row houses and a store owned by a white family. When we were young,
Fireman card is where it left off.
good, fireman exactly. So like if I turn the page, I can keep up.
Oh, you're recording.
Oh. Well, one day, ML and AD went to get their playmates from across the street, just as they had done 100 times before. But they came home alone. The boys told my brothers that they couldn't play together anymore because AD and ML were Negroes. And that was it. Shortly after the family sold the store and moved away, we never saw or heard from them again. Looking back, I realized that it was only a matter of time before the generations of cruelty and injustice that Daddy and Mother Dear and Mama and Aunt had been shielding us from finally broke through. But back then, it was a crushing blow that seemed to come out of nowhere. Why do white people treat colored people so mean? ML asked Mother Dear afterward. And with me, ML, and AD standing in front of her, trying our best to understand, Mother Dear gave the reason behind it all. Her words explained that streetcars our families avoided and the whites-only signs that kept us off the elevator at City Hall. Her words told us that there were parks and museums that black people could not visit, and why some restaurants refused to serve us, and why hotels wouldn't give us rooms, why theaters would only allow us to watch their picture shows from the balcony. But her words also gave us hope. She answered simply, because they just don't understand that everyone is the same. But someday it will be better. And my brother, ML, looked up into our mother's face and said the words I remember to this day. He said, "Mother dear, one day I'm going to turn this world upside down." In the coming years, there would be other reminders of the cruel system called segregation that sought to keep black people down, but it was Daddy who showed ML and AD and me how to speak out against hatred and bigotry and stand up for what was right. Daddy was the minister at Ebenezer Baptist Church, and after losing our playmates, when ML, AD, and I heard our father speak from his pulpit, his words held new meaning. And Daddy practiced what he preached. He always stood up for himself when confronted with hatred and bigotry, and each day he shared his encounters at the dinner table. When a shoe salesman told Daddy and ML that he'd only serve them in the black back of the store because they were black, Daddy took ML somewhere else to buy new shoes. Another time, a police officer pulled Daddy over and called him boy. Daddy pointed to ML sitting next to him in the car and said, "This is a boy. I am a man. And until you call me one, I will not listen to you." These stories were as nourishing as the food that they set before us. Years would pass, and many new lessons would be learned. There would be numerous speeches and marches and prizes, but my brother never forgot the example of our father, or the promise he had made to our mother on the day his friends turned him away. And when he was much older, my brother, ML, dreamed a dream and turned the world upside down. The end. Now that we've written the book, My Brother Martin, you learned about segregation. You learned how he wasn't able to play with his white children. Is that similar to how you felt when you weren't given your piece of candy? Whitney, how do you feel?
I think it is. I think I understand now why I didn't get candy, but now I still want candy.
Well, in this lesson, I want you to talk about things that make you seem unfair, whether it be boys or girls, or different cultures, whether it's blacks or whites. Everybody should be equal. Therefore, the girls will get candy.
Yay! Thank you.
So what big accomplishment do you think Martin Luther King did in his lifetime?
I think that he showed everybody that everybody should be equal and how to go about making everybody equal to where they feel the same.
Very good, Whitney. Let's have a technology lesson. Let's all go to the computer lab. And I would have the computer set up. Everything's ready to go. All they'd have to do is I would walk them through how to actually upload it. It would be a program that they could easily do, but time's taken, it's already up. So Whitney would come over and sit at the computer, and at each desk would be a questionnaire. And she would take this time to go through the lesson that begins with "Start Here." And this is a timeline of Martin Luther King's life. It begins with his birth, January 15th in Atlanta, and it continues through. It talks about the things that he has accomplished, the ages he accomplished them, where he graduated from school, who he married, the churches he preached from, how he boycotted with buses, delivering the "I Had a Dream" speech in 1963, how he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, the date of his assassination, and how we actually celebrate Martin Luther King Day on his birthday because of his accomplishment of ending segregation. They would go through the timeline webpage, and they would write the answers to their worksheet on their worksheet. After they were finished, we would go back to the classroom and we would discuss the answers to make sure everybody had a very good understanding of what took place and what Martin Luther King Jr. did for us as citizens today. To assess them, I would hand out this is just a rough copy, but I would hand out almost like a poster board copy of Martin Luther King, and I would have them write at least 4 sentences about his accomplishments, and then they would be able to color this. This would actually last through our lesson of Black History Month, and we would post them for everyone in the school to see. After they did their worksheets, I would be able to assess those worksheets to have a better understanding of where they are with Martin Luther King, what they may need to focus on, and what we would do for our next lesson. So that would end my lesson.
Yay!